Master Silgal, with the help of Tekli, oversees the thawing of Valen and Gisela Horn, who have been imprisoned in Carbonite by Chief of State Natasi Dala for weeks. They seem to be aware of their surroundings, and there is optimism they will be able to make a full recovery. It is not certain, however, if their psychosis has been cured. Unfortunately, this turns out to be the case, as the siblings still perceive everyone around them to be imposters. Valen and Gisela decide to hide their true condition from the Jedi, instead opting to bide their time before escaping. On the Jade Shadow, Luke, Ben, and Vistara are tracking Abeloth using a Dathomiri blood trail. They are all still injured to some degree from the battle on Almania's moon, and dock at a space station. 2 humans open fire on them upon landing, but the Skywalkers and Vistara easily outclass them. They are led to Cardia, their smuggling leader. Luke senses dark side energy emanating from one of the smugglers, a young woman named Fala in a sickly condition. He believes Abeloth is responsible, that she tore off pieces of her dark essence and scattered them across the system. Luke extends himself as a wave of light side energy to heal Fala, bringing her back to consciousness but greatly taxing his own energy. However, he also gains a sense of Abeloth's plans, and tells Ben and Vistara their next destination is the planet of Nam Chorios. Abeloth additionally seems to be trying to re-establish her bonds with the Shelter Jedi. Following their skirmish with the Sith fleet over Abeloth's planet, the Jedi Stealth X's have docked on the errant venture. They have not heard any news from Coruscant, and do not know where Abeloth, or even the Sith, have retreated to. Meanwhile, Tahiri Vela has been placed in prison, despite her being seemingly declared innocent in her trial. Apparently, this has been due to a clerical error. Tahiri has effectively been set up for death by the Warden, and knows she will have no allies in prison. The errant venture travels to Borlias and drops off Tarek's political prisoners, including Wyn Dorvan, safely. They were held hostage to cover the launching of the Jedi Stealth X's from Coruscant. The galaxy overall is in a state of great tension, as slave revolts have continued to spread and the Jedi have abandoned Coruscant. The Jedi, however, have their own plans now. They plan to stage a coup against Dala by arranging for the only available transport back to Coruscant to be the Dust Dancer, piloted by Jedi Knight Seha Dorvald. This will allow them to sneak Jedi right into the heart of the Senate and strike against the Chief of State. The Jade Shadow arrives at Nam Chorios, home to the insect species Drox. Its surrounding space is heavily militarized, as the Drox carry the Death Seed Plague. Also living on the planet are the Sills, which are a natural defense system against the Drox. Luke also tells Vistara she must avoid using the Force, as crystals in the planet's crust can magnify and redirect Force usage in destructive ways. Meanwhile, the Dust Dancer approaches Coruscant, carrying Seha Dorvald and Master Octo Ramis. The Jedi have kept the death of acting Grandmaster Kenneth Hamner a secret from the government and public. The Horn siblings continue to scheme and escape, and are summoned by Abeloth to Nam Chorios. Luke, Ben, and Vistara touch down in the city of Hueg Shul, where Luke plans to look for the Theron listeners, the planet's healers. They are directed to look for someone named Sel, an elderly woman. It turns out Sel is one of the oldest surviving Jedi remaining. She has stayed alive and healthy by eating drox, which when consumed release small bursts of regenerative force energy. Sel also tells him of a power called nemotherapy, a force power that can wipe out selective memories. Luke believes that she and the other listeners are in great danger from Abeloth. He also asks to learn the nemotherapy technique as well as the listening healing power. On Coruscant, the coup commences as Seha lands the shuttle Deep Ray at the Senate building. As her politicians disembark, she catches a glimpse of Dala and her staff striding out to greet them. Unknown to her and the Jedi, however, Senator Haydnot Treen and Mothla Surson have also initiated their own coup against Dala, purely out of sheer coincidence. Luke, Ben, and Vistara observe a listening master alter a civilian's memories, focusing on specific ones that incite trauma. Luke himself helps with the process, finding the technique of removing memories akin to pulling out a blade. The masters reveal that the painful memories are then held within them, as they cannot dishonor human experiences by letting them fade to nothing. Then, a force storm strikes their compound and city, destroying many homes. It is too powerful to have been caused by the listener techniques, leading Luke to believe Abeloth was responsible. Vistara sends a letter in secret to Gavar Kai, alerting him and the Sith of Abeloth's presence and telling him she can absorb others' essences to spread herself throughout the galaxy. The following morning, the body of a listener adept is found. Her killer is believed to be a scientist named Kagaran Wei, a Druk researcher. Meanwhile, Han and Leia are meeting with Dala, who demands to see Kent Hamner. The Jedi Strike Force leaves their shuttle and moves to detain Dala. Dala confronts Han and Leia, informing them that Seha Dorvald has somehow poisoned General Jackson of the Alliance and Mothla Surson. Leia, who is unaware of the coup, now plays defense against Dala, who asserts Seha has also gone mad. They then head to the Jedi Council, where Saba asks Leia to convince Seha to turn herself in. On Nam Chorios, Luke, Ben, and Vistara fly a shuttle to track Wei's travels, but encounter the Sith sphere. It blinds their sensors as it attacks, putting the party on the back foot. Several systems fail as a dust storm also hits. Luke is knocked unconscious, and the shuttle spirals out of control. Ben is able to take over and regain altitude, and the ship inadvertently shoots and kills a native Sil. They land safely and find Wei's hideout between towering ravine walls. Investigating further, Luke finds Wei's body. To find out what happened, Luke decides to try and communicate with the Sils, towering crystal structures, through the Force. He begins to meditate, appealing to the Sils' caring nature towards sapient species. Luke forms an image of Abeloth in her human and true forms, as well as the lives she has absorbed. A vision of Nen, leader of the Theron listeners, appears in his mind, which Luke realizes represents Abeloth's current victim. They must now warn the other listeners while remaining in hiding from Abeloth and the Sith Sphere. Kip Duran and Octo Ramus, disguised as senatorial aides, scout the Senate building to see when the best time to strike against Dala would be. The current plan is to infiltrate as many Jedi as possible into the building, then trigger a mass evacuation with the false threat of a Yuzan Vong invasion. The onus is now on Han, Leia, and Seha to continue help gathering intel on the security measures and distracting Dala for the time being. Seha surrenders to the law and is brought to trial, accused of poisoning several senators, although all were non-fatal. In reality, it was the coup led by Treen and Lasurson that was responsible. Meanwhile, the Galactic Alliance frigate Fireborn travels back to Coruscant, having captured Grunel Orvin, terrorist leader of the freedom fighters on Klaatuine. Orvin, however, manages to sabotage the ship and rig it to explode, killing everyone on board. A furious Dala immediately gives the order to send the Mandalorians to Klaatuine. However, it is revealed the Imperial coup against Dala was behind the bombing, looking to further provoke Dala into overly aggressive actions. News of the order reaches the Jedi, who now believe they must act to prevent the extermination of the Klaatuinians. As for Dala herself, she has only become more paranoid and desperate to resolve the ongoing conflict with the Jedi. Admiral Parova, part of the Imperial coup, meets with Dala and assigns her a new security detail. She begins to arrest Dala, but the Jedi choose that time to set off their false alarm. Han and Leia arrive in the outer office and take several visitors as hostages. Both coups have coincidentally started at the exact same time, but the Jedi have the bigger advantage of surprise. Saba Sabatine, Corran Horn, and Jaina, all hidden on the Millennium Falcon, rush towards the Senate building for the decisive moment. Seha is freed from prison as the Jedi strike, taking care to not inflict any casualties on security forces. Valen and Gisela are also part of the coup, though they seize the initiative to find a ship, planning to escape to Nam Chorios. Han and Leia stun Dala as she tries to flee. The Jedi announce they have formally deposed of Dala, but will not disband the Senate. Treen decides to bide her time to strike again, opting to pretend to cooperate with the Jedi and openly support their coup. A new triumvirate is formed until a new chief of state can be elected. It will consist of Saba Sabatine, Senator Treen, and General Jackson. Leia will be sent to Klaatuine to quell the unrest there, and Saba retains the services of Wynn Dorvan. Meanwhile, Luke, Ben, and Vestara make their way to Hueg Shoal, careful to avoid the detection of Abeloth and the Sith Sphere. They reach the city, still damaged by the Force Storm and unsure of the welcome they'll receive. The party has been blamed for the death of Dr. Wei, as well as an attack on the mayor that occurred shortly after he gave them their shuttle. Luke remains set on following the terms of his plea deal with Dala and decides to not call for Jedi aid. The three sneak their way back to Sel's home. Luke uses his new nemotherapy powers and figures out she and the other listeners are already under Abeloth's sway. Their task is now to somehow find Abeloth on the planet. Unknown to them, Valen and Gisela Horn are still on the way to Nam Chorios, answering Abeloth's call. Back on Coruscant, Tahiri's trial continues, but has faded into the background with the recent Jedi takeover. Her attorney, Aramith Watu, advises they send the decision immediately to the jury to avoid further risk of the current events swaying their decision. As for the Jedi, a funeral service is held at the temple for Kent Hamner, and it is now assumed that Valen and Gisela were not cured of their illnesses. As Leia prepares for her mission to Klaatuine, Saba tells her to offer the freed slaves membership in the Alliance and a Senate seat. Dala is sent to prison without bail and is coincidentally placed in the cell opposite Tahiri. She also plans to send a letter to Boba Fett, presumably asking for rescue. Elsewhere, Vestara continues to send letters in secret to Gavar and the Sith as she, Ben, and Luke continue researching where Abeloth may be hiding. Luke learns of the Jedi coup, Hamner's death, and that his sentence has been overturned. Meanwhile, Jagged Fell issues a public statement voicing his support of the Jedi. This risks the Moff Council, most notably Lacerson, openly turning against him. Tahiri is found guilty of committing premeditated murder by the jury and is sentenced to death. It is Aramith's first loss in court as a defense attorney. On Klaatuine, Alana leaves the Falcon with R2-D2, C-3PO, and her security detail to explore as Han and Leia begin negotiations. Leia struggles to find common ground with the Klaatuinian leaders, who are wary of trusting the Alliance's intentions and the Jedi's tendency to act outside the control of the executive branch. Queen Mother of Hapes, Tenel Ka Jo, is asked to attend the summit to help with the talks. The Skywalkers and Vestara begin searching pumping stations on Nam Chorios, but to no avail. Vestara is confronted by Tola Anax, a Sith who accuses her of killing High Lord Talon on Abeloth's planet. The Skywalkers arrive as other Sith attack from the sides, and the three fight off the Sith and manage to escape. They rendezvous with the crew of Valen and Gisela's ship. Elsewhere, a Sith squadron led by Querdon Day tracks Tenel Ka as she leaves Hapes. They intend to discover the identity of the mysterious Jedi Queen in Talon's vision and kill her. Day and his crew arrive at Klaatuine, observing the Millennium Falcon and Tenel Ka's ships have already landed. After years of being separated, Tenel Ka is reunited with Alana, who has been recently troubled by nightmares of a burning man attacking her mother. Meanwhile, Dala begins to plot her escape from prison on Coruscant, having managed to successfully get in contact with Boba Fett. A staged explosion goes off, and Dala scrambles out of the hole it creates. Tahiri notices her fleeing and frantically follows her. Boba Fett arrives and aids with helping Dala escape. In the chaos, however, Tahiri also escapes and hides in the lower levels of the city. Alana begins to feel something is off in the Force, and notices Day observing the Hapen and Solo parties, though she is obviously unaware of his Sith origins. Master Kip Duran and several Jedi land on Klaatuine, while Alana begins to track Day. C-3PO goes missing, concerning Alana but not worrying Han or Leia. The summit between Leia and the Klaatuinians resumes, this time mediated by Tenel Ka. Elsewhere, Gisela Horn infiltrates Hurkan base in orbit over Nam Chorios. A journalist named Kandra joins Luke, Ben, and Vestara on their search, hoping to capture some recordings and images of Abeloth. Luke reveals that he knows that Vestara has contacted the Sith, but welcomes them as allies for destroying Abeloth. They journey to another pumping station, where they find locals and Theron listeners in dire states of misery, signaling Abeloth may be somewhere nearby. Luke also encounters Valen Horn, and learns he is still insane and under the sway of Abeloth, who Valen refers to as Grand Master Callista Ming. Abeloth, posing as Callista in Jedi robes, then appears. Luke and Ben are able to sense the presence of Callista herself in the Force, and it is revealed that her conscience has given Abeloth a sort of compassion for the Jedi. The Sith arrive outside, attacking the compound. Luke approaches Callista, urging Ben to trust him. Valen then attacks Ben, who is forced to fight him alongside Vestara. As Abeloth compels Luke to join her and stand by her side, the Grand Master of the Jedi steels himself and resolves to save Callista. Using his nemotherapy powers, he rips Callista's being from Abeloth, releasing her being from the physical world. Luke sees her fade from the Force as Abeloth transforms into Nen, the Elder of the Theron Listeners. Nen then stabs himself with a lightsaber, and Abeloth flees once more as the Sith arrive. Meanwhile, Alana decides to lead the Falcon again to try and find C-3PO. Unknown to her, this is a ploy by Day. He has wired the droid with a bomb, and now hopes Alana will find him and return to the ships with Tenel Ka and the Solos. Alana finds C-3PO, who is unaware of his condition, and they return to the camp. She then slips away from her security and sets out to find Day, who she believes may be the Dark Man from her nightmares. Gavar Kai and the Sith fleet now approach Nam Chorios, planning to defeat Abeloth and kill Luke Skywalker. They disable the orbital guns as they approach, but one station, the one secretly infiltrated by Gisela, remains online. On the surface, the Sith surround Luke, Ben, and Vestara and attack. A massive force attack then hits the combatants, sending most of the Sith sprawling. As they flee, they see in the sky the Sith fleet locked in battle with Jedi stealth X's, which has been summoned in secret by Luke in preparation for the encounter with Abeloth and the Sith. As C-3PO slowly approaches Tenel Ka, Day observes from a distance. He suddenly realizes Alana is Tenel Ka's daughter, and another possibility for being the mysterious Jedi Queen. Day moves to grab the remote for the bomb, but finds it missing. Alana, meanwhile, has tracked Day through his dark presence in the Force and has found him monitoring the camp. She realizes C-3PO was the danger foretold in her dreams all along. Alana grabs the remote and confronts Day. Elsewhere, Leia has been tracking Alana and begins to rush to a hill where she senses Alana and Day's presences. Day attacks Alana, but is intercepted by her Nexu cub, Anji. Leia arrives to defend Alana and duels Day. She decapitates him, preventing the secret of Alana's heritage from being spread. The bomb is disabled in C-3PO, but the Hapans immediately leave Klaatuine, separating Alana from her mother once again. Gavar Kai and the Sith are forced to withdraw, taken aback by the Jedi's coordinated, lethal attack. Herc on base, commandeered by Gisela, opens fire on Luke and his Stealth X. Despite the Jedi's best efforts, Abeloth and the Sith Sphere are able to escape, but Jaina and Zek are able to rescue Luke. Valen and Gisela are captured and are finally cured. The Sith Sphere, after fleeing Nam Chorios, hails the Sith fleet. Abeloth herself contacts Gavar Kai, her eyes filled with rage and pain. She proposes the Sith ally with her to vanquish the Jedi. Darish Vol, Grand Lord of the Lost Tribe of the Sith, summons an emergency meeting on the planet of Kesh. The Sith must decide whether to enter an alliance with Abeloth against the Jedi. Some of his council believe Abeloth to be their savior, a being of tremendous power that can help the tribe conquer the galaxy. Vol decides that Abeloth will be welcome to Kesh for the time being. Gavar Kai has also returned to his homeworld, and begins to ponder whether his loyalties are with the High Lords or the grander ambitions he has for himself. The Sith Lords delay, telling Gavar, who is also acting as Abeloth's intermediary, the welcome celebrations will take place in 3 days. Abeloth grudgingly agrees, but is wary of potential traps laid by Grand Lord Vol. Later that evening, Gavar speaks with his wife about Vestara. He has come to believe she loves Ben Skywalker, and may even be swayed from the dark side and join the Jedi. Gavar believes this failure of Vestara must not go unpunished, and kills her pet Ubok, Tick. The celebration of Abeloth's visit takes place in Tav, Kesh's fabled city of glass. Millions gather to see Abeloth herself and the famed Sith Sphere. She appears as a woman with blonde hair and gray eyes, and seems to float in the air as she lands beside Vol. As the festivities commence, Vol closely observes Abeloth to discern her true motives for Kesh. Later that evening, he meets with his most trusted lords, confiding to them that he does not trust Abeloth or Gavar Kai. Afterwards, Vol meditates to rejuvenate his body. Abeloth appears in a Kashiri appearance and reveals her true form to him. His intentions were clear to her all along, and Abeloth launches an attack on him to claim his essence. Vol, however, lays a trap for her and enters her mind, striking at what he sees as her greatest vulnerability. Abeloth is desperately lonely, torn apart by anguish, betrayal, and an intense desire for companionship and love. Vol exploits her loneliness, causing Abeloth to convulse in pain in the Force. She lashes at him out of tremendous pain, sending Vol tumbling out of the dream. Shaken and exhausted, he stumbles towards his hangar, terrified at the power he had seen from Abeloth. As for Abeloth in the physical world, she has been plotting to take Kesh as a new homeworld for herself and to demonstrate her sheer power to Vol and the Sith. However, she is enraged at Vol's attack on her psyche, and unleashes a terrible scream of rage. It unleashes a devastating wave of Force energy in the glass city of Tav. Those closest to her implode, and the city becomes beset by a hurricane of glass shards that move so fast they melt upon piercing flesh. Gavar Kai escapes the carnage, as he was on his ship Blackwave at the time of the attack. However, his wife is killed on the ground. The Sith Sphere communicates to him that it must depart with Abeloth soon, and Gavar chooses to side with the two entities rather than his own homeworld. As he and his crew come to terms with their betrayal in hyperspace, Abeloth begins to subtly manipulate them in the Force, justifying their actions and soothing their unease. Gavar and his soldiers, for all intents and purposes, have now become deeply devoted to serving Abeloth. Abeloth hides her true condition from Gavar, for she has been badly wounded by Vol's attack, and the Grand Lord of the Sith still lives. She plans to recover and heal, and takes particular interest in the slave revolt on Karas. Abeloth is intrigued by its revolutionary leader, Rokari Kim, who is beloved by her people and seems to fight with love and words rather than violence. Meanwhile, Win Dorvan has fallen into a new role as acting Joint Chief of State alongside Master Saba Sabatine and Senator Haydnot Treen. They are overwhelmed by the widespread revolutions across the galaxy, which involve setting up new governments and Senate seats. Elsewhere, Moff Lucerson continues his schemes with his co-conspirators, including Treen and General Jackston. It is revealed Lucerson is responsible for starting the Freedom Flight, which was intended to destabilize Dala's government. He hopes the revolutionary planet's senators can eventually be corrupted and then brought into the fold of the Imperial Remnant. Additionally, he was the employer of the false Jedi who attacked Admiral Nek Watu, who has now woken up from his coma. Meanwhile, Jaina helps Luke, Ben, and Vestara find the location of Kesh. Vestara is less than helpful, as she is reluctant to hand her people over to the Jedi. They decide to start tracking the Sith Sphere instead, with the help of Jedi Natua Wan. Jaina makes the argument they should search Corban, the original homeworld of the Sith. It excites Vestara for a brief moment, disappointing Ben, for he still hopes he can redeem her to the light side. They soon land on the eerie, haunting landscape of Corban, one that speaks to thousands of years of history and ancient conflicts between the Jedi and the Sith. However, they do not sense any Sith or Abeloth at all. Their path winds through a massive compound and then into the Valley of the Dark Lords. As Luke starts to investigate several tombs, the ancient shadows and spirits that guard the dead are awakened. Sith hounds swarm forward, but Vestara is able to calm them by speaking in Kashiri. She is able to learn there are supposedly no Sith on Korriban. Luke, surprisingly, seems to agree. The other Jedi recon groups have also been unable to find anything. It is revealed that Vestara, who continues to fight the seduction of the dark side, nonetheless also warned the Sith hounds to find any of her tribe and warned them to stay hidden. Meanwhile, Lucerson and Leia both receive a mysterious message from an unknown sender. Leia's message claims that old friends know where Dala has disappeared to in her exile. Resurgence is visited by a Minyavish, the slaver species from Karas overthrown by Rokari Kem. It blackmails him, claiming to have evidence linking Resurgence to the Freedom Flight. Additionally, it somehow knows the entire extent of the conspiracy, even of Treen's involvement. Resurgence stuns it, and becomes determined to find out just how much the Minyavish people know. After hours of torture, the Minyavish confesses to acting alone, but the evidence is real. Resurgence kills it and informs Treen of the developments. He then plans to find the evidence and return to Imperial space, where he will begin to campaign to become Emperor. Somewhere in the Outer Rim, Natasi Dala remains on the run with Boba Fett on the Slave One. She learns of Resurgence's role in the Freedom Flight, which comes as stunning news. Dala agrees to work with Fett, who demands that in exchange she finds a cure for the nanovirus ravaging Mandalore. The weapon was unleashed by the rogue Moffs during the war against Darth Caedus, and has rendered Mandalore uninhabitable. Meanwhile, Leia holds a meeting with the Squibs, former allies of her and Han during the Swarm War. They are the mysterious party that contacted Leia with claims of information. Blaster fire then interrupts them, with the attacker seeming to wear Imperial armor. Alana is separated from Han and Leia, but manages to escape with the Squibs to the spaceport. On the Jade Shadow, Ben continues to defend Vestara, as Luke still does not trust her intentions. Their next destination is the foreboding world of Dromund Kaas. They make their way to the Sith Temple, trekking through humid, marshy terrain. Once again, however, they see no signs of life, but the presence of the dark side seems somehow fresher. Then, 10 Sith Sabers emerge from the temple, led by Gavar Kai. A shocked Vestara claims she didn't betray their location and learns of her mother's death. Gavar and the Sabers attack, with Vestara forced to duel her own father. Ben is wounded in the shoulder, but dispatches several attackers who come at him 3v1. The Sabers are reinforced by the dark side nexus in the temple, as Luke and Jaina fight back to back. They easily kill the 6 Sith that swarm them, as Vestara continues to battle Gavar. As Gavar curses her name, she realizes he has fallen under the sway of Abeloth. Vestara lets go of her loyalty to Gavar at last, and kills her father. As she and Ben walk hand in hand out the temple, Ben hopes this moment will be the catalyst to bring Vestara to the light side. Abeloth learns of Kai's death while on the Sith Sphere. Still weakened, she resides on the floor of the ship as a writhing mass of constantly forming and reforming body parts and tentacles. Ben learns of Vestara's letters, all seemingly constructing a loving relationship with her father, a pure fantasy. Vestara begins to wonder if she could become a Jedi, and Ben vows to help her. They admit their love for each other, and Vestara Kai is at last turned to the light side. Luke decides they will return to Coruscant. For him, it will be the first time in a long while. He is surprised to learn of Vestara's desire to become a Jedi, but agrees to begin training her. As for Ben, Vestara's redemption reinstills hope in him, and he begins to let go of the dark presence of Darth Caedus in his mind, replacing it with warm memories of Jacen Solo. After rendezvousing at a safe location, the Squibs reveal to Han and Leia that Dala plans to consolidate her forces in the Meridian sector. Leia agrees they will protect the Squibs from further Imperial attacks, and plans to get the information to the Alliance and Jagged Fell. Luke lands on Coruscant and returns to the Jedi Temple for the first time in what feels like ages. He is greeted by Saba, who he forgives for initiating the coup and killing Hamner. To Luke, both masters had truly done what they believed to be right, and no punishment is necessary for Saba. Upon seeing the other masters, a smile comes to Luke's face, and he feels rejuvenated. Luke then delivers an ultimatum that the Jedi are to leave Coruscant entirely, a decision met with shock by the Order. He believes it necessary that the Jedi demonstrate they operate separately from politics. Tassar Sabatine and the other Barabel Jedi will remain behind to safeguard the temple and their nests. As Vestara Kai tours the temple with Ben and Jaina, they encounter Natua Wan, who believes the Sith ship may be on Upexar. Han and Leia reunite with Luke, who also meets Win Dorvan. The Jedi decide they will formally endorse Dorvan as he runs for official Chief of State in the upcoming elections. Talking more with Dorvan and Senator Treen, Luke formally ends the triumvirate government by pulling the Jedi out of the Galactic Alliance. He believes the Order must be fully autonomous to deal with the threat of the lost tribe of Sith and Abeloth, who he now believes are working together. Later, Luke meets with Peri Needmo for a media interview, and also learns Rakari Kem will be coming to Coruscant. Later, the Solos have dinner with Jagged Fel, who also plans to return to Imperial space. Tahiri Vela arrives, and Leia reveals she thinks it would be best if Tahiri be taken there as well. As her crime was against an Imperial Maw, she can begin to make reparations and serve as Jag sees fit. Otherwise, she will languish in prison, wasting her days until execution. Jag agrees, so long as she obeys his orders without question. The day arrives when the Jedi plan to leave Coruscant. Leia will stay behind to assist with the political transition. The Squibs also enter the company of Han and Leia, to the pleasure of Alana. They also reveal to Jag they have acquired a serum that defeats aging, a product of Imperial research on drogues. Jag forces them to hand it back over to him in Imperial custody. Meanwhile, Dala enters Imperial space and allies herself with Moff Proak Vanson. Vanson hosts a clueless Lacerson for dinner at his estate, then ambushes him by having Dala show up unexpectedly. The former Chief of State seizes control of the political conspiracy, turning the tables on Lacerson by claiming she has irrefutable evidence of his involvement in the Freedom Flight acquired from separate Minyavishi. Dala effectively blackmails Lacerson into flipping back to her side so she can regain power in the galaxy. In a surprise to Leia and the Jedi, Win Dorvon is not elected as interim Chief of State. Instead, his candidacy was questioned by Senator Cameron Soldar. Leia is unaware Soldar is a member of Lacerson's conspiracy. Leia is stunned to hear that Padmé Oven, the former terrorist leader of Klaatuin, has instead been elected. Oven meets with Win Dorvon, displaying surprising self-awareness about his limited experience as a politician and how his nomination was a surprise. Oven believes other senators seek to use him as a puppet, one that can be easily manipulated. He hires Dorvon as his new chief of staff. Dorvon later visits Nek Bwatu, and it is revealed he is feigning mental damage lingering from his coma to the doctors. Events have moved quickly, as Leia has now been called to testify before a subcommittee to address potential abuse of power by the Jedi while they were on Coruscant. Dorvon notes that all the members of the subcommittee are relatively new senators and wonders if more than one conspiracy may be happening under their noses. Treen and the co-conspirators learn of Lacerson's betrayal and his new alliance with Dala. They are also growing concerned with Senator Soldar, who they implanted in the Senate. Alliance security forces arrive at the Solo safe house in the middle of the night and take Leia away for the trial against the Jedi. Anti-Jedi sentiment begins to brew once more in the courts and legislative branch, seemingly steering things back to the way they were with Dala. As Luke, Vestara, and Han watch news of the events, Vestara suddenly recognizes Senator Soldar. Shockingly, she reveals that Soldar is actually a Sith, High Lord Ivar Warkon of the Lost Tribe. Perhaps more surprisingly, Luke seems unbothered by this development. He had deduced that the Lost Tribe had infiltrated Coruscant, given the Jedi's unsuccessful mission to find them on several planets. Luke plans to gather all the Sith in one place while the Jedi set out to defeat Abeloth. Then, the Order will return to Coruscant and reclaim it from their foes. While imprisoned, Leia is approached by Aramuth Bwatu, who proposes she join a mysterious secret organization. Meanwhile, several Sith sabers explore the grounds underneath the Jedi Temple. They are ambushed by Tassar Sabatine and the other Barabel Jedi who have stayed behind to guard their nests. The wildly popular and charismatic Rakari Kem also arrives in Coruscant. High Lord Warkon is stunned by the resignation of Senator Treen and the surprise death of another senator. He gives orders for sabers to monitor Alliance military leaders, including Admiral Parova and Generals Jackson and Thal. Win Dorvon and Chief of State Oven meet Kem, and are taken aback by her charm and loving, mother-like nature. She then pulls Warkon aside, and sternly, coldly, tells him to stay out of her way. Kem claims to him the persona the galaxy loves does not actually exist. She implies she seems to know about the Lost Tribe's infiltration of the government as well. Later, Workon hails Grand Lord Vol, informing him the Jedi have left and the planet is ready for his arrival. He expresses concern over Kem, who seems to not be Force-sensitive, but knows much about the Sith's plans. Vol makes plans to travel to Coruscant himself to deal with the upstart senator. Elsewhere, Han Solo kidnaps Admiral Perova and imprisons her. She is detained in the asylum block at the Jedi Temple, and finds herself surrounded by Win Dorvan, his aide, and a hollow of Nek Watu. They openly confront her about the Imperial conspiracy, then leave her to her quarters. However, before they can learn more, after they leave, several Sith break in and kill Perova. News of the Admiral's death reaches Jagged Fell and his new bodyguard Tahiri aboard the Gilad Palaeon. Senator Soldar takes to the news networks, blaming Tahiri for the murder. Jag plans to contact Moff Jatelis, hoping to convert him to his side by using the anti-aging serum acquired from the squibs as leverage. He also knows that Jatelis met with Dala several days ago. At the meeting, however, Jatelis shoots Jag, seeming to have been working with Dala to assassinate him. Dala, meanwhile, has managed to regain control of the Maw Irregular fleet and is plotting to take over the Remnant. She relays Jag's death to Lasursen as her allies drop out of hyperspace to add their ships to her armada. Jatelis arrives late, and it is suddenly revealed that Jag is alive. Several Chiss Star Destroyers then arrive out of hyperspace, as Jag orders Dala to stand down. The ships are joined by several otherworldly beautiful starfighters, part of the vanguard of the Empire of the Hand. Jatelis then attacks Dala from behind, and a massive space battle breaks out. Dala quickly realizes the battle may soon be lost, but Lasursen then bombards Jag's hidden base on the moon of Borleo. Jag and Tahiri manage to escape and rejoin the fray on the Bloodfin. Grand Lord Vol lands on Coruscant, feeling that soon the Sith will rule the heart of the galaxy once more. Leia is still imprisoned, and they now plan to eliminate Rokari Kem. In the dead of night, Vol moves to assassinate Kem, but is somehow killed by the charming senator. She calls Workon Veal a hollow, showing him Vol's head. Kem then calls herself the beloved Queen of the Stars, and asks to meet with him. Meanwhile, the Jedi approach Ufexar, hoping to find the Sith Sphere and defeat Abeloth once and for all. The full might of the Order ventures forward as dark energy swirls around them. A massive rock scurry attacks Ben, Vestara, and the Tua Wan in the tunnels below. It is a mutated native species corrupted by the dark side and is also referred to as a Dream Singer. The Dream Singer unleashes pheromones that freeze Ben in place, crippling him with paralyzing fear. Vestara knows the monster needs a Force-sensitive sacrifice. The other Jedi above are unable to sense the presence of the Sith or Sphere at all. Luke uncovers a female Kashiri, revealed to be Tola Anax, the former second-in-command to Gavar Kai. She has been badly beaten, and Luke realizes that she has been rigged to be a Force bomb by Abeloth. A massive explosion goes off as the Jedi flee, and a dormant volcano also begins to erupt. Meanwhile, Vestara makes the choice to save Ben. She attacks Natua Wan, cutting her across the belly. Natua is left helpless with the Dream Singer as Ben comes back to his senses and escapes with Vestara. They are forced to abandon Natua as the tunnels collapse around them. Vestara is shaken by the ordeal and how easily she sacrificed a fellow Jedi. She believes she can never truly become a Jedi, just as Ben will never be a Sith. Vestara now dreads the day they are destined to become enemies, when she will be forced to kill him. On Coruscant, General Thal confronts Jackson in his home, well aware their plans are unraveling around them. Jackson shoots himself as Thal presumably leaves Coruscant, effectively ending the Imperial conspiracy. Elsewhere, it is revealed that Leia has become a part of Dorvan and Nek's Club Watu, a secret organization created to root out the Imperial conspirators. Workon continues to manipulate the Senate, now pushing for Rokari Kem to be appointed as the new interim chief of state. Padnal Oven addresses the Senate and begins to filibuster for time as Han, Lando, and Win Dorvan work to break Leia out of prison. She is freed without any major issues, but Win Dorvan is confronted in his office afterwards by 3 Sith. As Oven's speech drags on, Rokari Kem uses the Force to induce a heart attack as he's speaking. Oven dies on the spot, and Workon then pushes for an immediate vote. Rokari Kem is elected as new acting chief of state. She moves to commandeer the Jedi Temple as her new base of operations, and also proposes Leia be executed. They then travel to the temple, surrounded by politicians, business owners, news anchors, and security chiefs. All these fields have already been infiltrated by the lost tribe of the Sith. However, news reaches them of Leia's escape, and Win Dorvon is brought before Rokari Kem. She bends down to speak with him, her mouth widening into an unnatural smile. Rokari Kem is Abeloth, and she is now in control of the Galactic Alliance. Jaina Solo and the Jedi return to Coruscant, knowing the lost tribe of the Sith have infiltrated all levels of the government. The assault force sneaks in under civilian guises, taking advantage of the lost tribe's relative unfamiliarity with the greater galaxy. The knights Yakil and Yantahar Bwatu encounter resistance from a Sith posing as an inspections officer, forcing the Jedi Basil to intervene. He steals some other passengers' illegal cases of spice and approaches Yakil's group. When they are stopped by security, it appears the Jedi are actually spice smugglers. The event is passed on to the news, also controlled by the Sith, as a Jedi spice cartel. Meanwhile, Luke's team also runs into trouble when Vestara recognizes one of the sergeants as a Sith, who also sees through her disguise. Luke uses the Force to disorient the Sith and get him to activate his lightsaber. The new GA security forces, unaware of the sergeant's true identity as a Sith, think he is a Jedi and try to arrest him. Vestara manages to fatally wound the Sith with his own Shakar to avoid their covers being blown. It is a coldly logical kill that makes Luke wonder if she can ever become a Jedi. Luke eases the Sith's suffering by sliding the knife into his heart with the Force, and his team is able to infiltrate Coruscant. On the surface, Win Dorvon is being tortured by Abeloth, who is still posing as Rokari Kem and Chief of State of the Galactic Alliance. Abeloth stops the torture and asks Dorvon to stand by her side. He knows he is running out of time, and that it is only so long before Abeloth discovers the existence of Club Bwatu, which is now assisting the Jedi infiltration missions. To save lives, Win Dorvon agrees. Abeloth asks him whether to return Lieutenant Pogorsky back to the Imperial Remnant. Dorvon tells her she should grant the Imperial request, but Abeloth instead absorbs Pogorsky's essence. As the liberation operations commence, Ben and Vestara are sent to the office of Ivar Workan, the undercover High Lord of the Sith. They are to serve as distractions until Luke and reinforcements arrive to detain him. The Jedi send a message to all the Sith imposters on Coruscant. It is an ultimatum telling them to surrender or die. Predictably, many of the Sith choose to stand and fight, but the Jedi have prepared many ambushes across the planet and strike with ruthless efficiency. Jestot Vul, security superintendent, is killed by Corran Horn, and Master Octa Ramus defeats Kayala Fey. Jaina, however, is unable to capture Tello Rovas, who is posing as a Grand Justice. In all the attacks, the Jedi take care to not inflict civilian casualties. Ben and Vestara enter Workon's office, but Workon immediately sees through Vestara's disguise. It is revealed Vestara had also not told the Master she was familiar with Workon and had met him before. She and Ben are immediately captured, and Vestara realizes in her head that Workon must die during the mission. She is feeling more conflicted about her future in the Force, and plans to eventually leave the Jedi Order. Luke and his team then burst in, and a massive fight erupts. Several Sith are quickly cut down, and the Jedi move in to take Workon alive. Vestara lies to Ben, claiming he has a detonator for several bombs he is trying to get to. Ben opens fire, killing the Sith with a blaster. Meanwhile, Alana has been reunited with her mother, Queen Mother Tenel Ka of Hapes. They are currently helping with the evacuation of the Jedi Academy on Ossus, knowing the Sith plan to invade the planet soon. Alana is suddenly struck by a Force vision of Tassar Sabatine and the Barabel Nest being massacred under the Jedi Temple. She cannot tell Tenel Ka, however, for she was sworn to secrecy by Tassar. Tenel Ka promises to warn Saba as soon as the evacuation is complete. The war continues on Coruscant, albeit largely in the background and out of the public eye. Dorvan walks with Abeloth in a park, who is frustrated at the Jedi incursion. Another advisor, Lady Coralie, recommends the Sith reveal their presence to the public. They plan to brutally subdue the unrest, forcing the Jedi to come out into the open to fight. Dorvan fears the resulting fear and pain would fuel Abeloth's powers to an insurmountable effect. Instead, he advocates that the Sith must defeat the Jedi quietly by drawing them into the temple. As the evacuation progresses on Ossus, all of the transports seem to make it off the planet. The mission seems to have gone incredibly well, and Leia breaks away to see if she can warn Saba and the Force about the Barabels on Coruscant. However, Han notices that one vessel, Sharmach 718, is moving suspiciously. He and Tenel Ka come to believe it may have been taken over by the Sith, and now plans to strike at the heart of the fleet. She gives orders to cripple the ship and send in assault teams. Sharmach 718 instead moves to evasive maneuvers and blows up. The Sith had rigged it with bombs and had hoped to assassinate Tenel Ka. Leia returns after being unable to communicate with Saba, and Alana decides to go back to Coruscant with her and Han to warn Barb. Han and Leia understandably refuse to let Alana accompany them back home. The Sith retreat into the temple, and Luke and his allies begin to make plans for attack, knowing full well there will likely be many traps along the way. They plan for Space Marines to draw the Sith to the outer shell of the temple, where Luke and the Jedi will then strike from within and disable its shields. Vestara hopes for the mission's success, as it means the remaining Sith will regard Luke and the Jedi as a great threat and stop hunting her for her betrayal of former High Lord Talon. She also deduces Alana, who she still knows as Amelia Solo, may beat the Jedi Queen foreseen by Talon in the pool of knowledge. The attack commences, with Vestara and a team including Ben and Jaina. They meet little initial resistance, but Vestara soon detects several ambush teams hiding in the shadows. The Sith attack, initially taking Ben and the other Jedi by surprise. Jedi across the temple are ambushed, and their careful plans have seemingly been laid to waste. Jaina arrives and drives the Sith back almost single-handedly, while Ben rushes towards Vestara, who is knocked unconscious by an explosion. Jaina fights side by side with Ben, killing several more Sith, but Vestara is captured. Jaina and Ben flee the killing zone and manage to meet up with Luke and Corran Horn. Meanwhile, Jagged Fel has held Dala under siege on the planet of Exodo 2. He knows the political instability has put remnant space in a state of chaos, with Moffs everywhere making power grabs with their personal fleets. A ship manages to break through his blockade, and Tahiri senses a powerful force presence somewhere in the debris field. A powerful force flash blinds Jagged's sensor systems. It is an attack of considerable power, one that leads Tahiri to believe that Abeloth may be present. Dala learns of the skirmishes and territory disputes breaking out across Imperial space. She sees it as proof that Jagged is not worthy of becoming Emperor, and that she must step in to restore order. It is revealed that Lieutenant Pogorsky was the pilot of the ship that broke through the blockade, and she now offers her services once more to Dala. Pogorsky suggests Dala hold a general election to determine the new head of state to avoid politicking with the Moffs. Lacerson is forced back under Dala's thumb as the battle rages on. Meanwhile, in the Jedi Temple, Dorvan continues to desperately look for a way to defeat Abeloth. He manages to steal a small blaster, and looks on as Abeloth takes another manifestation, this time Lady Coralie's. Then, in the form of Rokari Kem, Abeloth takes a seat at a command console, showing her back to Dorvan. Not believing his luck, he shoots her in the back, seemingly killing her. However, it is soon revealed that Abeloth has transferred her consciousness to the computer console itself, allowing her to control the temple defenses at will. The Jedi fight further into the temple, and Ben is stabbed in the thigh when his Sith feigns surrender. He and the Horn siblings must now try to lower the blast door so the Marines can breach the temple, while Luke and his squad find the command computers. Meanwhile, Raynar Thol has been ordered to return to the Killik colony, where he was once a joiner and one of its leaders. He is tasked with learning more about the mysterious Celestials the Killiks once served, and is accompanied by Lobaka, Tekli, and C-3PO. Raynar falls back into his role as Unu Thol and manages to get in contact with the Thurut nest and its current queen. He knows that he may have to become a joiner again to get the intel the Jedi need. Upon learning Abeloth is roaming the galaxy once more, the Queen lets loose a powerful rumble. The colony bursts into activity, and the Jedi learn the Queen has signaled the end of time has come. Meanwhile, Gisela finds a badly wounded Wind Dorvan in the command center. He warns her of Rokari Kem's duplicity, and Gisela also catches a glimpse on a monitor of Vestara fleeing from several Sith. Dorvan babbles on, seeming to have gone mad. Gisela realizes that Abeloth is in the temple, and Valen is knocked out, separating Ben from the Horns. The Millennium Falcon also arrives on Coruscant, and Han and Leia discover that Alana has stowed away on the ship. They manage to evade security forces and reunite with the Jedi and members of Club Watu. Alana alerts Saba of the threat to the Barabel nest, and Han and Leia learn of the mission's failure. Luke and his team are now stranded in the temple against 4,000 Sith. The Solos and Basil decide to venture underground to warn the Barabels. Deep under the temple, Vestara continues to run from her Sith pursuers, but cannot seem to shake them. She is cornered by the Sith, led by the Lady Sashal. Sashal tells Vestara Grand Lord Vol no longer leads the Sith, and moves in to capture Vestara and torture her for information. Vestara stalls, telling them the identity of the Jedi Queen to be Alana Solo. Sashal then hands Vestara a thermal detonator as a door opens behind her, revealing the Millennium Falcon. She is ordered then to kill Alana, who emerges with the Solos and Basil. Vestara throws the detonator, which damages the Falcon but doesn't inflict any casualties. The contingent begins to battle the Sith, with Basil standing in front of Alana to defend her. Han mans the Falcon's turrets and forces the Sith to find cover, but Basil is stabbed through the chest. Nonetheless, he continues to cut down Sith as the party turns to run. Alana shoots several Sith, killing them with a blaster as a dying Basil covers their rear. His arm is cut off, but the powerful Jedi calls upon the Force to continue protecting Alana. However, the Sith attacks are too numerous, and Alana's protector and dearest friend is cut down. Back in Imperial space, Jagged Fell prepares for the upcoming democratic election, something rather unheard of in the Imperial remnant. He sends Tahiri to Hagamor 3, where Boba Fett is believed to be. The Mandalorian leader is looking for a cure to the nanovirus ravaging his homeworld, and Jagged believes finding Boba will lead them to Abeloth. Jagged also appoints Admiral Raish to run as a third-party candidate in the election, hoping to split the military vote and give him a better chance of beating Dala. Elsewhere, Raynar Thol begins to fall back into a joiner mindset, talking more with the Thurut Queen. In exchange for information on Abeloth, he will have to help the Thurut restore their hive, which risks renewing Chist's aggression against the Killiks. Still wanting to serve the Jedi and seeing no other option, Raynar agrees to the terms. He is shown a series of panels that depict a pale-haired woman, a powerful man leading a line of chained Killiks, and an older man on top of a mountain. They seem to represent a father, son, and daughter, but Raynar notices a mother figure seems to be missing. More panels are shown of the trio standing by a geyser and swimming in a pool, with each individual seeming to be able to change their physical forms. Thurut calls them the Ones, and that the pool Raynar sees is the pool of knowledge. She seems to imply the Ones are almost pure manifestations of the Force itself. Another panel is shown of a different woman, who is identified as Abeloth. Apparently she appeared after the father, son, and daughter, and is depicted as the servant who became the mother. Raynar is shown more of her backstory, in which Abeloth seems to unite the three Ones into what appears to be a family. However, as time passes, Abeloth physically aged while the other family members didn't, and Raynar notices the father is shown to be arguing with the son and daughter. He sees Abeloth drinking from the font of power as the father shoots force lightning at the son and daughter. Next, a younger Abeloth is shown swimming in the pool of knowledge. The family now seems to be embroiled in conflict, and the father seems to be sorrowful at Abeloth's actions. Another panel shows her attacking the son and daughter in her true form as the father protects them. Tekli wonders if Abeloth is a celestial, given the effects of the fountain and pool were different on her compared to the son and daughter. Thurut replies, "It is Abeloth's nature to seek what is beyond her grasp. That is why she is the bringer of chaos." More panels show the father, son, and daughter leaving a deranged, furious Abeloth. It is revealed that Abeloth was first freed during a massive, centuries-long war between two alien species. The root tells the Jedi she is able to escape whenever a time of great chaos strikes the galaxy. That is when Abeloth emerges and lays waste to the old order, resetting civilization. It seems the 5,000-year-long conflict between the Jedi and Sith has been responsible for her most recent awakening. The root tells Raynar the current was turned at some point recently, presumably by Jacen Solo during his Force pilgrimage. The current is intended to be an unalterable flow of many different futures in the galaxy, guided only by the Force. Jacen changed the current in an attempt to steer the galaxy away from an unknown tragedy, thereby also changing the Force. Because the Celestials' power resides in the Force, this change and disruption of their power consequently allowed Abeloth, the bringer of chaos, to escape. Raynar is then directed to panels that show the Killiks building Centerpoint Station with the help of the Force. He learns they are given the Force by the son and daughter, who are also referred to as the Architects. The Architects are the natural enemies of Abeloth, for they seek to prevent her from destroying the civilizations they had a hand in creating. The role of the colony is to help the Architects for when they come, the reason behind Thruit's great rumble that set the nest into frantic activity. Raynar by now has become a joiner once more, and tells the other Jedi to return to Coruscant to pass on the intel they have gained. Meanwhile, Tahiri arrives at Hagamore 3 and is able to begin tracking Boba Fett. It is revealed that Moff Jateles also has a lab that is developing the anti-aging serum. Tahiri is able to deduce that Pogorski is another manifestation of Abeloth, and is able to find a captured Fett in the lab. She frees him and alerts him of the threat Abeloth poses. Fett is also after the lab's head scientists, as they know a cure for the Mandalorian nanovirus. They pass through dozens of slaves rife with wounds among a forest of fungi and moss, Abeloth's alien creations. The two scientists, Freela Tarm and Jasal Yu, are found chained to chairs. Tahiri then walks into the main lab and sees the heads of 8 Moffs, all supporters of Dala, floating in the air. They are attached to thin tentacles flowing into Pogorski. A deep voice resonates in Tahiri's mind. It is Abeloth, welcoming her. On Coruscant, the Jedi trapped in the temple are running out of time to complete their mission. They only have 8 minutes to take down the shields before the Marines attack. Luke, Jaina, and Corran are all wounded and glowing with the Force as they make their way to the shield generators. They are currently being pursued by Coralie and her troops, who are being aided by Abeloth in steering the Jedi away from the main computers. Luke also knows Ben and the Horn's mission has failed. He promotes Jaina to the rank of Master as they close in on their target. Coralie and her Sith attack again, and Luke is able to badly wound her, but is blasted by Force lightning. She seems to be unaffected by the mortal wound, and turns her attention to Corran and Jaina. Luke fires several blaster bolts into the Sith, but she does not slow. He now realizes Coralie is actually Abeloth. On Hagamore 3, Tahiri and Boba Fett begin to battle Abeloth in her Pogorski form, who sends the tentacle heads flying towards them in a violent attack. Tahiri is subdued by Abeloth, but is rescued by Boba, who empties his arsenal at the cosmic being to no effect. However, Tahiri is able to stab the Pogorski body with her lightsaber, and Fett jams a detonator into the wound. The resulting explosion throws them away, with Abeloth disappearing. Tahiri then reveals to Fett she gave orders for the Imperial Navy to bombard the moon if she didn't return in time. Explosions begin to rip through the lab, exposing it to the vacuum of space and killing the two scientists. Meanwhile, Jaina plays dead in the battle against Coralie, who suddenly reels in pain. She staggers away, and Abeloth's true form is shown to the wounded Jedi. Unknown to them, Tahiri and Boba Fett have killed the Pogorski manifestation, weakening Abeloth as a whole and causing the Coralie manifestation to flee the battle. Elsewhere, Alana and the other Solos make it out of the lower levels, furious at Vestara's betrayal. The Sith begin to catch up to them, and they steel themselves for another fierce battle. Terran, Zek, and the Barabel Jedi then arrive and beat the Sith away. Alana tells Dasara that the existence of the hatchlings is essentially an open secret now. Elsewhere, Tahiri manages to make it back to Jagged Fell as the first Imperial election day arrives. Jagged knows his public approval rating is dropping, and reveals to the public the existence of Dala's lab on Hagamore 3 that was researching the anti-aging serum. Moreover, the use of drokes in the research is considered highly unethical in Imperial culture, as the insects drained life energy from their hosts and were the cause of a plague that killed billions. Jateles confirms the claim, and surprising everyone, Jack drops out of the race. It is a shrewd political move, as he has destabilized Dala's campaign and given momentum to Rage, his own admiral, to win head of state. The move pays off, and Vitor Rage is elected as the next Imperial head of state, ending Dala's bid to reclaim power in the galaxy. Ben Skywalker wakes up, now a captive of Abeloth on the Sith Sphere. He sees Abeloth single-handedly destroy several gunships carrying space marines as they try to infiltrate the Jedi Temple. Abeloth feeds on the soldiers' fear and dark side energy, growing only more powerful as that fear begins to spread in the general population. Ben still does not understand why Abeloth has taken such a special interest in him. He then sees Vestara walking alongside a Sith, then bowing in front of Abeloth. She seems to have betrayed him yet again. Abeloth draws on more dark energy, and groundquakes begin to shake the planet. A deity born of chaos, fear, and pain is slowly being created before Ben's eyes, one that will bring an apocalypse to Coruscant and the galaxy itself. Vestara then whirls around and cuts Ben's cuffs, but they are quickly gassed and knocked out by the other Sith. Jaina, Luke, and Corran are safely evacuated from the temple with the help of the Marines and slowly begin to recover. Though still weakened, they all attend a meeting with the Masters as the earthquakes continue. Jaina learns Tahiri and Boba Fett killed Abeloth as well in Hagamore 3, and now knows Force entities can exist in more than one place at the same time. At the meeting, she learns many Sith managed to escape and are wreaking havoc in the city, with millions of civilian and security force casualties already. There are also reports of a strange man with a tattooed face and dark side energy. According to Mirak's Horn, he refused to battle any Jedi, telling them Abeloth must be dealt with first. He also seems to be unaffiliated with the lost tribe of Sith. The Masters learn of Abeloth's ability to inhabit more than one body at a time, and now know the clock is ticking before she becomes too powerful to stop. She also seems to favor Force-sensitive bodies, which is why Win Dorvan was allowed to kill the Rokari Chem body. Tekli then arrives and passes on what she and Lobaka learned with Raynar. She tells the Jedi of the Ones, a family of Force entities. The daughter represented the light side, the son the dark, and the father was the keeper of the balance between the two. A panel is shown of Abeloth standing in a temple complex. Jaina and the other Masters realize it is the same temple in similar dreams they have all had recently. In Jaina's, she saw Ben dueling Vestara. Despite all the new intel, however, it is still unknown how exactly to stop Abeloth from fulfilling her plans. Luke then reveals that the Ones may not be able to help them. Apparently, during the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi encountered an artifact called the Mortis Monolith. They seem to have met the Ones and learned the father was dying. Anakin, as the Chosen One, was asked by the father to be his successor. However, Anakin refused, and the Ones fell into conflict and slew each other using a special Force dagger. It explains the current nature of the galaxy, as the Force has not had balance since. Jaina now believes Abeloth has taken Ben in a desperate attempt to rebuild her family of the Ones, with herself taking on the role of the father. It seems Vestara Kai will be the embodiment of the dark side, with Ben representing the light. The Galactic Justice Center is then destroyed, melting into a heap of magma and adding to the hellish landscape. The Jedi then see the Sith Sphere flying away from the temple, presumably carrying Abeloth, Ben, and Vestara. Meanwhile, Jagged and Tahiri now fly to Coruscant to help the Jedi in their war. They meet up with Saba to rescue the Solos and Alana. They are able to save them, along with the Barabels and their hatchlings. Saba and Tahiri mow through the Sith ground forces alongside Jagged's Void Jumpers to take out the computers. Elsewhere, Ben and Vestara are urged by Abeloth to drink from the font of power as they are denied food and water. They fight her off, with Ben blasting her in the chest with the Force. Several days later, Luke and Jaina arrive at the Maw and learn of the Solo family's plight. Jaina tracks the Sith sphere, as Luke wonders if it is truly the will of the Force for Ben and Vestara to become the new daughter and son. They find the Sith sphere, and Jaina begins to battle it as Luke enters Beyond Shadows to confront Abeloth. He finds a lake filled with the faces of dead spirits. Mara appears again, telling Luke he cannot kill Abeloth. Jacen Solo also shows up and reaffirms this, and Luke blames him for allowing Abeloth to be set free. They cannot help him, but then Luke turns and sees a tall, hooded man shrouded in darkness. It is the same man who haunted Luke's dreams before Jacen became Darth Caedus. Jacen reveals that he is the man he foresaw on the Throne of Balance. The man reveals he is a Sith and offers to help Luke defeat Abeloth. Abeloth herself then appears across the lake, and the final battle begins. On the Sith sphere, Ben continues to resist the temptation of the Font of Power, and Abeloth moves in to consume his essence instead. Vestara hits her with Force Lightning, telling Ben they can kill Abeloth. As Abeloth writhes on the ground in pain, Vestara taps into the Font's dark side power, letting it wash over her and seeming to revel in Abeloth's anguish. Ben grabs Vestara and carries her away from the fountain and Abeloth. However, Abeloth, in Corali's body still, launches a massive dark attack. Ben calls upon the Force, and he becomes a being of pure light and purpose. He strikes the Corali body with a powerful Force blast as Vestara recovers, but is stunned and knocked to the ground. Meanwhile, Luke and the strange Sith hurl Force attacks at Abeloth Beyond Shadows. Luke grapples her, but is struck in the eye by a tentacle as the stranger punches straight into Abeloth's stomach. The Sith also begins to force strain Abeloth and Luke, who kicks the Sith in the knee and threatens to release Abeloth, who is rapidly weakening. The Sith suddenly reels back in pain, and Luke lunges forward and grabs Abeloth by the throat. She suddenly disappears and flees to the fog. In a moment of desperation, Abeloth lashes at the Sith with countless tentacles. Luke intercepts her as their Force energies collide again and again. He is able to elbow her clean through the head. The Sith is wounded in the chest, and Luke and Abeloth both fall as well. In the physical realm, Jaina hears a terrible scream from Luke as she continues to battle the Sith sphere. On Coruscant, Saba notices that Abeloth, acting through shadow phantoms in the computers, seems to have been greatly weakened. They are able to detonate a bomb in the command center, and several tentacles then attack Saba. Her lightsaber goes out, and the Barbell Master begins to brutally brawl Abeloth. Abeloth bites her in the arm, but Saba clamps down on her neck with powerful jaws and rips her head off. She then reinstates Tahiri into the Jedi Order. Ben wakes up to see Vestara barely holding the Corali body at bay with Force Lightning. He grabs a Shakar, stumbles to his feet, and stabs Corali in the back. Ben drops a pillar fragment on her chest, killing another manifestation of Abeloth. The Sith sphere abruptly stops battling Jaina and turns to flee. With her 3 concurrent bodies now killed, Abeloth has finally been defeated. Still in the Lake of Apparitions, a wounded Luke watches Abeloth sink into the depths of eternity and resigns himself to death. Mara appears and stops him, saying that he and the Sith will survive, but they both have suffered spiritual wounds in their battle with Abeloth. The Sith then approaches Luke, claiming Jacen did not change the future he saw with the Throne of Balance, but merely delayed it. He then vanishes into the fog. Luke asks Jacen why he didn't come to him when he had his dark vision at first, and Jacen reveals that he saw Alana standing at the Dark Man's side. Ben and Vestara reunite with Jaina on Abeloth's planet. Jaina only meets with Ben, however, and takes him on board to see Luke. Ben then sees a vision of Coruscant and Alana fighting a dark enemy, presumably legions of Sith. He comes back to his senses to stand by Luke's side. His father is still unconscious but clamps his hand whenever Vestara is mentioned. Ben still defends Vestara and her intentions despite Jaina and Luke's misgivings. Jaina then tells him of the battle in the temple and how Vestara attacked the Solos alongside the Sith, and that Basil died defending Alana. Luke's grip is now like a vice, and Ben now knows it is a warning. He finally accepts that Vestara is, and always will be, a Sith. Outside the ship, Bastara now knows Ben will be told the full story of what happened and begins to weigh her options. The Sith chip enters her mind and reveals it is free from Abeloth's control and has now entered the service of Bastara. It offers to take her to Sith not affiliated with the Lost Tribe and appoints her as a true Sith Lord. Ben and Jaina then confront her, and she stalls for time so the sphere can rescue her. Bastara attacks Ben with Force Lightning, which tears her heart apart as she still loves him. Jaina moves in, but it is too late. The sphere arrives and scoops up Bastara, and they fly away to space. Luke reawakens in time for their return to Coruscant. Abeloth's apocalypse has left the planet in ruins, and there are far too few Jedi to help all the survivors. Luke gives orders to have Raynar Thol return to Coruscant and asks to meet with Win Dorban, who is now the acting chief of state. Win Dorban informs Luke there has been unprecedented damage to Coruscant on the ground level and in the air, with toxic smoke and ash spreading everywhere. Casualties are estimated to be easily in the billions. Additionally, it seems essences of Abeloth are still lingering in the galaxy, as a few days ago Jedi were attacked by a tentacle that materialized out of the Force. Luke knows that Abeloth can never be truly killed, and that eventually she will be strong enough to return. He believes the Jedi must now find the Mortis monolith, a daunting task given it is free-floating in space with no known last coordinates. Additionally, the Senate has decreed the Jedi to be responsible for the crisis, and now demand the Order leave Coruscant. Luke agrees to withdraw the Order from the planet. A squad of Jedi, dubbed the 10 Knights, is sent out to find the Mortis monolith and the mysterious Force-imbued dagger that was used to kill the Ones. With her true identity now known to the galaxy, Alana accepts her destiny as the Jedi Queen and heir to Hapes. Jaina and Jagged are married on the Dragon Queen too, and it seems, for the moment, there is peace in the galaxy and hope for the future.